Welcome to Everything Co-op, bringing you information on how cooperatives can help improve your quality of life. This show is being sponsored by the National Co-op Bank, NCB. The NCB is dedicated to strengthening communities nationwide for the delivery of banking and financial services for the nation's cooperatives, their members, and other socially responsible organizations. For more information on the power of community ownership, visit ncb.coop. That's ncb.coop. Now stay tuned for your host, Vernon Oakes.
Good morning, everybody. This is Vernon Oakes. Welcome to Everything Co-op. This morning, we have the pleasure of having Pastor Keith Davis from Camden, New Jersey on with us, and Julian Miller, who's an attorney out of Tougaloo, Mississippi. So, good morning, brothers.
Good morning.
Good morning. Delighted to be here with you today, Vernon.
Thank you for taking our time to be with us. Now, you know this is Black History Month, and we're celebrating Black History Month. And the theme this year is resistance. And throughout the years, the resistance that we've had to be here today after 400 years of racism and discrimination and all of the ills that have been put upon us as a group of people. So we want to talk about what we're doing to resist in Camden and in Mississippi, this racism, and more importantly, what we're putting forth for the future. So let's start with you, Brother Davis. What is the Camden Dream Center Technology Training School?
Oh, thank you for that question, Vernon. First, when we look at the corporate culture, our leadership at the Dream Center, we serve our communities through a prophetic lens. And that's important because that takes us back to the beginning of our people in this country. And it is through that lens that we seek to address essential and core needs of families, of underserved communities, both in the city in which we are located, throughout our state, the region, and the country. So when you talk about resistance, talk about how do we approach it and what the Dream Center represents, it's more of an academic, economic approach to how we address the systemic needs that are in the community, barriers that are in the way that prevent one from learning and being empowered to serve the communities and transform it in such a way that it becomes systemic.
Barriers that are in the way that keeps people from learning. And how do you remove those barriers to get people to jump over top of them? Yeah, that's really important. So, Brother Miller, an attorney, Tougaloo, Mississippi, what do you guys do to help to remove these barriers?
Well, first of all, thank you, Vernon, for a chance to be here and to talk about the work that we're doing with the Reuben V. Anderson Center for Justice, which I co-founded. So, the center is named after Reuben V. Anderson, who was probably the most transformative civil rights attorney and leader in Mississippi. He was the first African-American graduate of the University of Mississippi School of Law, and he was responsible as a lawyer with the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. He literally was responsible for integrating every public school in the state of Mississippi, literally as part of that legal team. And so he became the first African-American Supreme Court Justice for Mississippi and a prodigious lawyer and philanthropist who was an alum of Tougaloo College. And so he wanted to leverage his legacy to transform Mississippi, essentially. He knew how to do that, but he had a vision for it. And he knew that he wanted to leverage the resources of Mississippi organizations doing transformative work in the areas of economic justice, public health equity, educational equity, and criminal justice equity. And he wanted to build synergy and collaboration and coalitions of these organizations to, again, make systemic change in Mississippi. And a big part of that work, we can have a whole separate show talking about all the work of the Anderson Center, but for the purposes of this program, what we're doing and how we connected, the biggest area is around economic justice. And so what we did for economic justice work, the primary focus is building cooperative food systems throughout Mississippi to capture the $6 billion food market for BIPOC communities of color in the state. Of course, Mississippi has the largest black population of any state by percentage, but of course it's the most economically oppressed. And I know you all have been seeing what's going on with the city of Jackson and everything that's been going on there. Of course, we'll talk more about it, but what will ultimately cure these ills, this economic disparity that we've suffered for centuries, is the capacity to build economic security around food system development. So we started a food system at Tougaloo College, where Just Answers Distinguished Alumnus, where I have been on faculty for 4 years come next month, where we established the institute. We work with Tougaloo students to do this work in these 4 areas, but particularly building our sustainable food system, to develop it as we're own cooperative and leverage that to build sustainable food systems throughout the state to capture a multi-billion-dollar market. So our health can feed our economic security, and we also can deal with these other societal ills in other areas I spoke of.
You said a mouthful, bro. Turn you on, okay. Economic justice is the main focus we're going to talk about today, and this is what co-op is so important and why you're on today to talk about, and it's food systems, food justice you're talking about. So, Brother Davis, in your school, in Camden Dream Center, that's a STEM school, science technology. What are you doing in the food security arena?
Yeah, great question. So currently, we are exploring, leveraging our backgrounds as engineers and technologists on how each of the 4 STEM domains, that would be science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, leads directly to skills development and also improve academic outcomes to prepare our young people who are enrolled, let's say, in career technical education programs. So we have partnerships with school districts and colleges and universities. And so in high schools, these CTE programs now, where students are participating in these programs, can now have a career path in the ag space. Now, we do this work currently by hydroponic farming systems, and that's what's being developed over the past year.
I'm sorry, Brother Davis, but I just got to catch up, because you're in Camden, New Jersey. You're in an urban area, and you're talking about farming in an urban area. Did I have you right? That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, we're city. We're definitely city. You know, brick, mortar, concrete. You know, hard surfaces.
I get in Mississippi talking about this, but Camden, New Jersey, you're talking about farming. You're talking about growing food.
And that's what's so interesting and intriguing, in that you could produce in one urban farm, which is a container in our particular case, equivalent to 4 to 5 acres of traditional farming. And so we're looking at STEM. I mean, you're talking about code it and grow it. How science, technology, engineering, and mathematics is part of an urban farm in the Northeast. Because these skills that kids are learning in these CTE programs are the same skills that are ubiquitous in most high-paying jobs and often lead to successful careers. So from a school perspective, we're seeing how an urban farm, leveraging it through school systems, getting kids excited about STEM, but also around the whole subject of food sustainability and sovereignty, it makes a lot of sense. So we're thrilled over being able to roll this program out.
It's exciting. I taught math and science in my early career, my first career. I taught middle school math and science, and then I taught at the college level mathematics. So I had found that whether they're college or middle school or elementary, any level, if you can get them to get their hands into the work. We're talking about math, but how do you get them into the work so that the knowledge becomes alive? And that's what I'm hearing you talk about. And that excites me.
You're talking about IoT, the sensors. You're talking about scripting, writing scripts that would impact directly your yield. We're talking about youngsters being exposed to science. So we strongly believe in this vision, and potentially we believe that it could reduce, if not altogether, eliminate many of the issues that we find in black and brown communities across America each and every day.
All right, so I get it. You're going through the stomach, okay, to get folks to enjoy STEM.
Grandma said, if you want that young man to marry you, you got to get him through the stomach.
That's extremely exciting. Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math STEM program by agriculture in the city. Now, you said for you it's a container. Are you talking about like a 18-wheeler, those kind of containers?
Oh yeah, exactly. You're talking about a farm that you drop it and it's already ready to go, and is a proven technology that's being used around the world. And currently my team, we're doing all of the engineering and the environmental studies and so forth to determine how many do we need, the partnerships that are necessary in the community in order to launch this successfully. And again, our work cuts across, these other domains of academics and economics. So you talk about opportunities to teach entrepreneurship, how to monetize, and now create your own food system that for years in our community, particularly as a pastor, we've had a food pantry for 30 years, but we've been relying on a charitable model. So now we're producing food, now it becomes an economic engine within our communities to really employ people and teach the skills of entrepreneurship as we partner with our local colleges and universities to actually bring professors into our setting, into our school, to leverage those assets that exist in our communities. It addresses food insecurity, obviously, but it also contributes toward an improved health and well-being for those who are participating, because studies bear out whatever kids are doing. If they're growing the food, they will eat the food, and as a result, be transformed as a result of eating the carrots and the vegetables that's grown in the farm. We know that these areas, whether you're talking academics, the food, the health and well-being in a community, poverty, right? It's all cyclical. These are the cyclical conditions that contribute to what we see. They are all related. But we see our urban farm as being a solution that addresses all of those in a way that it causes one to be empowered through what they've learned.
Wow. I could have had a show with either one of you for 2 hours. This is extremely exciting. Brother Miller, we're going to take our first break here in a minute, and I want to come back, and I want you to talk about this whole thing of this. You talked about economic justice. And you just heard Pastor Davis talk about how these students can learn how to grow it from a scientific standpoint, from a technology standpoint, in a container. And you are in Mississippi, and I assume you're working with the farmers, and you're going from farmers to the table, from the farm to the table. And I want you to explain to how that is working, particularly for the students and what they're getting out of it. But we'll be right back, everybody. Please don't touch that dial.
WOL News Talk 1450 AM at 95.9 FM.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Vernon Oaks, and the program is Everything Co-op, and we have Brother Miller, an attorney out of Mississippi, the Reuben V. Anderson Center for Justice out of Tougaloo, and Brother Pastor Keith Davis out of New Jersey. So before the break, Brother Davis had talked to us about growing food in containers in Camden, New Jersey, in the rural area. And he said he can grow food the same as in this container and get the same production as 4 to 5 acres on the farm. And now we're going to talk to Brother Miller. They are working on a lot of things in this center, but right now we're focusing on economic justice and building co-op food systems. So, Brother Miller, tell us about this co-op food system. What is that, and how does it go from the farm to the table? How do you work that?
Of course. So, my background for 15 years, I did anti-poverty work in the Mississippi Delta region where I'm from. Originally, I'm a fifth-generation Deltan, and so we had started an organization there called Delta Fresh Foods Initiative, where we're trying to build community food systems in the Delta counties, which is the Delta region, Mississippi Delta region. Is the second poorest region in the United States behind Appalachia.
It is the second what?
Poorest region in the United States behind Appalachia.
So you're saying when I grew up in Bluefield, we were poorer than y'all in Mississippi?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, in the Delta. And 2/3, odd enough, and 2/3 of all of the African Americans in the state of Mississippi live in the Mississippi Delta, and it's 2/3 African American. So local growers only captured 0.0004% of that market. Most of it's imported. It's a $1.4 billion market. So I co-founded Delta Fresh Foods Initiative to rectify that by working with farmers.
Okay.
So we had an issue with sustainable food systems. We were trying to develop sustainable food systems in the Mississippi Delta. So when we founded the Anderson Center, the goal was to begin that work, to parlay that work in trying to do the urban food system model, because Tougaloo is located in Jackson, Mississippi, which is the only urban area in Mississippi. And so we developed it on the campus of Tougaloo College, working with our students, with our project lead, Roderick Woods, who's phenomenal and who's a Tougaloo alumnus. And we worked with the students both to build production through use of high tunnels on campus, and then, of course, around that, build a marketing strategy to connect with vendors and growers to support and build and try to scale that market. And so the project will be 3 years old in April. And since that time, we produced thousands of pounds of produce. We built partnerships with Feeding America and its local affiliate, Mississippi Food Network, to supply food for their food distributions. We did a fresh foods exchange event where we brought local vendors to the table to to build these relationships with, so we can provide our produce to them, so we can begin to scale the project. And now we completed a business plan, and now we're looking at expanding the farm by 50 acres. So Tougaloo sits on 500 acres of land. We're using about maybe 40 to 50 of those acres for the main campus, and so we want to begin to expand our project and scale it so it can be such a multi-million-dollar social enterprise for the benefit of the Tougaloo College, which is an HBCU, as well as the surrounding Jackson community, which is 82% African American. And we also want to make that model sustainable to be able to replicate throughout the state with other BIPOC communities.
So are you going to create a co-op or several co-ops in this process?
It'll be several co-ops. So the idea of it is we have a partnership with the Mississippi Food Justice Collaborative, and the idea is we would facilitate food system development throughout the state. So it'll be multiple sort of co-ops, some local, some we think some local, some regional. Because I think the issue is, we have some of the best farmers in the world, but I think that there just hasn't been incentive to think about how to work cooperatively, collaboratively to build these food systems, and how to also cultivate the local food market. That's another issue too. That's also part of the Anderson Center work, our public health equity work. We are doing projects called doing food as medicine projects in the Delta as well. We, in partnership with Tufts University and Delta Health Center, we got a $6.6 million NIH grant. And so we're going to provide access to locally grown fresh produce for 6 months weekly to 300 participants who have chronic health conditions such as obesity and diabetes. And then, of course, going to measure their health outcomes, their A1C levels, their weight, and track that. And based upon the results of that study, we're going to make policy recommendations for Medicare and Medicaid dollars to be used to pay for locally grown fresh foods the same way it pays for prescription drugs. So that will not only address public health disparities through preventative health means, it will also cultivate the individual market in order to make this food system sustainable and scalable. So we're trying to kill multiple birds with one stone. This work.
Or you're trying to keep black people alive. Okay. Okay, amen. And, that's a hallelujah. Yeah, was that $5.5 million grant from NIH?
$6.6 million.
$6.6 million grant from NIH to study the benefits of nutritional food on health.
Yes.
Okay. I'd like that. Now, Pastor Davis, I saw you looking while my brother was talking. What did you think about all of what he just said?
I have such an admiration for Julian Miller's work and his passion with it. A couple of things that I found quite intriguing, one of which is the social determinants of health. It's more than one thing. When we look at the condition of the community, I'm a believer that it's a people up model. And that's what I hear, and that's what we've all embraced, because I think we both share in common the fact that we've received grant funding from Feeding America, and we both work in partnership with our local food banks. And so it is a collaboration that I'm looking currently at. How does the collaboration becomes a cooperation? And so we're still feeling that out, and I'm confident that that transformation will take place, where historically it's always been top down. We will tell you what we're going to do in your community. But when I retired from my day job, which I owned a systems integration company for 30 years, my initial goal was to transform our local community by building a $50 million a year business. And I was extremely successful at running my business. But it came to a point where I realized that it is not just economic. It's more systemic and involves other domains in that community.
Amen.
And one of the things that I'm hearing now is, from our mission perspective, in order to transform community, I'm looking to do that because starting with our community, in which I've pastored for decades, and looking at it from a prophetic voice and seeking how to galvanize all these assets in the entire community. That includes anchor institutions, right? Mm-hmm. And definitely have residents at the table. I've been to many meetings in the past where you have all these talking heads and you don't have anyone from the community involved and their voice isn't being heard. And so we need all these major stakeholders to be at the table when you implement kinds of programs like that. And that's what I'm hearing that's been achieved there in Brother Miller's vision. It's so exciting to hear it.
Extremely exciting, sir. Both of you. So, Brother Miller, you're the youngest on this show today. So,
I feel old.
You feel old. How did you get into this work? Run us real quick through how you end up at Tougaloo.
Like I said, I was a fifth generation Mississippi Deltan. I was raised in a very small rural town of about 199 people.
And what's the name of it?
Winstonville.
Winstonville. Okay.
Yes. And so my great-grandmother and then my grandmother ran a corner store there for, and it existed for like 70 plus years. And so because of that little store it was a small town, so you really knew everybody for the most part, but definitely was able to connect to everyone through that environment, through that experience. And so, it kind of was forced upon me. It informed that I knew I wanted a career that, that would make some kind of a difference, because I was so connected to the people, not just my family, but the people in my community, so close-knit. And so I thought it was going to be medicine, but I like politics, I like public service, and I thought, you can give someone life worth living through that venue, as opposed to medicine where you keep them from dying when they simply don't have to. So I went to college in the Northeast and committed to being a lawyer, and then before I went to law school, I did 3 years of anti-poverty work in the Mississippi Delta. And that's when I had started to work with Delta Fresh Foods, that because of the importance, because the food system work had the advantage of both addressing public health disparities as well as economic insecurity and economic justice, I felt that it was the perfect vehicle to sort of commit to that work. And then, the revenue that's generated from the social enterprise can be used to address other areas.
We'll be right back. I'm going to pick up on that when we get back. Everybody out there, please don't touch that dial.
News Talk 1450 WOL-AM.
This is Vernon Oaks, and the program is Everything Co-op. Brother Davis is out of Camden, New Jersey, and Brother Miller is out of Mississippi, Tougaloo. Brothers, we've been on air now 9 years, and the National Cooperative Bank has been our sponsor those 9 years. NCB has just been a great, great, great partner. Their mission is to support and be an advocate for America's cooperatives and their members, especially in low-income communities, by providing innovative financial and related services. So, brothers, it sounds like Mississippi is a low-income community, and also Camden, New Jersey. So it may be, if you're looking for money, particularly for food co-ops and other types of co-ops, you might want to reach out to them to see about getting your funding. You can tell them that Vernon sent you. Okay. Okay, Brother Miller, you were talking about growing up in this huge metropolitan area of 199 people, and your your peoples were rich because you had a business, a convenience store.
Oh, you call it that.
Oh yeah, yeah. And you got a sense of what you wanted to do. You thought it was going to be medicine, but you ended up in law and political science. So keep telling about how you end up at Tougaloo.
So, the food system work I got committed to for 15 years. When I became a lawyer, I did most of civil and appellate litigation. I had an opportunity to work for like the biggest firm in the state at the time, and I had an opportunity to do a case with the Mississippi Department of Education, where we were looking into state, test cheating, where a particular school that had cheated on state tests, and they were looking to our firm to investigate and prosecute licensure hearings related to that. So the chief lawyer at the time who was going to work on the case was Raina Anderson, who was the daughter of Reuben Anderson. And so we had a chance to work that case. Oh my goodness, it's been on for like 3 years. And we had a chance to work together in that case and build a friendship. And she was someone who was, an amazing attorney in her own right and wanted to sort of leverage her father's legacy to help transform Mississippi. And so with that, discussions, the thought was to start the center with the goal of leveraging resources to build collaboration and coalitions amongst institutions and community organizations to address these issues, significant social problems, economic disparity. So from that, I had joined the faculty of Tougaloo because Justice Anderson and Raina both are Tougaloo alumni, distinguished Tougaloo alumnus. In fact, Justice Anderson is the most distinguished Tougaloo alumnus. And so they wanted the work to be centered at Tougaloo for the center and to both engage and educate students, the next generation, and train the next generation of social justice advocates in doing this work on the ground and learning, and build careers and be trained in their own right from that experience. And so, I joined the faculty of Tougaloo, and we started the Anderson Institute at Tougaloo, which is an offset of the center. The institute is to the college, and the center is the nonprofit that works with Tougaloo and other organizations doing this work. And so, that rest was history. And so we've had a chance really to work with amazing organizers and advocates and professionals, organizations in these areas, not just economic justice work, but in the other areas I mentioned. And our students to really do transformative work and really build a model both for training the next generation of social justice advocates as well as doing the systemic work and advancing the systemic work necessary to really make a difference and improve the lives of people of color and all people, really.
So I would like for you to come back in a few minutes and talk about some examples of students, particularly as it relates to this food justice, this economic justice. But Brother Davis, how did you get into your work? Now, it sounds like from the little I've gotten so far, you've just had a tremendous array of background in your career. You had your own business for 30 years. You've been a pastor. You helped to set up this center for education. So you're an educator, a pastor, entrepreneur. You have a whole lot of things going on for you. So can you give us a 2-minute version of your history?
Yeah, when I was listening to Julian speak on his experience, the one thing that continued to resonate with me is this seemingly a paradigm shift has taken place, the mindset of where nonprofits are functioning today. Don't have time to speak to the origin of nonprofits and where that 501c3 was first legislated and why it came about. I'm going to set that aside for a minute. But look at how innovative and resilient we are to take that piece of legislation to build social enterprise. Social enterprise. I mean, we should just have one session where we talk about not this old model of nonprofit depending on a charitable system, but rather a paradigm shift that enables us to build value in the marketplace and generate revenue that funds our social passion and convictions. And I've heard Julian mention that more than once, directly and a couple of times indirectly. So I think with his background and my background, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I never had a job, right from Bible college, realized I wanted to have ministry in the inner cities, and they couldn't afford really to pay me a salary that would enable me to take care of my family. So I've always been an entrepreneur. Back then, we just called it a legal hustle. And so I've been very fortunate and blessed to build multi-million-dollar companies through being a technologist. So let me just leave that there. But the work that we are doing today, gentlemen, and Julian understands this because it's oozing out of him, that it requires, the participation of key stakeholders in every community. Communities that we want to create that impact and communities that we're serving in. It requires collaboration. It requires partnership. And so when we look at our implementation, we're looking at connecting and developing relationships with all the anchor institutions in that community, along with industry that is serving the interest of that community. It includes the local school systems, right? Mm-hmm. And higher ed, and building those pipelines from K to 12 and beyond, because we have relationships with the universities as well. But you also need those nonprofits, and you need communities of faith. Like myself, I am, without question, I'm a pastor. My day job. I did a funeral this morning before this show, right? Mm-hmm. And 6 o'clock, I ran a regional 6 a.m. prayer meeting, and I do that Monday through Friday. But also 4 o'clock this morning, I was pumping iron and on the treadmill. So these are the principles. It's a holistic approach to transforming our community to think more intentionally about improving our quality of life, because we pray for and we work with our local political people all the time, but they're not going to impose that on us. We need to impose that on ourselves. So the communities of faith, a new model in nonprofits is essential and extremely important in order to improve the local businesses, both small and large. And so a paradigm shift, incorporating social enterprise mentalities that spurs entrepreneurship. And I remember, I'll say this and I'll stop, my nephew, when he was released from prison, did 5 years in prison because he wanted to be an illegal entrepreneur. Well, today, when he came out, he wanted to work with reentry people who were in prison. I said, son, you need to bank first. Get out of this nonprofit area and get yourself a business. Today, he's a multimillionaire and does make money legally, put him in a position where he can marry a physician, and his life is totally transformed. Totally. And so it was always there for him, but we need role models, people who are modeling what it means to be truly successful. So in my opinion, the new nonprofit paradigm shift needs to take place, as you see clearly exemplified by Julian's organization and the Camden Dream Center.
So I've got a lot of respect for you brothers, and it sounds like there's a lot of mutual respect going here. But this whole thing on this incarceration, Dr. Jessica Gordon-Nimhard chaired a conference yesterday on co-ops that help incarcerated people. And she was looking at Italy, Puerto Rico, and Peru of what's going on. But there's also a place, Chi-Fres, that provides food for institutions, for schools out of Chicago, and 5 formerly incarcerated people started that co-op to do that. So it's a lot of places we can work. And so Camden, New Jersey, where I looked at, 33% of the people, 1/3 of the people in Camden are in poverty. You said that a lot of people in Mississippi are in poverty. And in Camden, was it 80% of the population is black and brown? Some huge number in Camden, and same thing in Mississippi in the Black Belt. The only difference for most of us, and the reason I wanted to bring up this poverty, is whether we got from incarcerated or not incarcerated, is whether we got mixed up with the law. Whether we did something wrong or not, just getting mixed up with the law can cause you to go to jail. And that poverty, so all of these programs is to help people, whether they were incarcerated, formerly incarcerated, or not formerly incarcerated, to pull people up out of poverty. So I'm excited about what you guys are doing. And what I would like to ask you now, and start with you, Brother Miller, is can you give examples of either students that you know and what they have reported back to you they've learned? Because when I taught, And I want to put a plug for Howard University. I taught 5 years at Howard in their marketing program, business school, and great students. So I'm always interested in what are the students learning, and when you can give them what you two guys are giving them, hands-on, you can go out and talk to the clients or create these things, then that book knowledge becomes alive. So what are some examples you've got for what students are learning?
Oh wow! Do we have time for another show? So, the Tougaloo Agri Growth Initiative project is run by our students, essentially.
Let's say that again. What is run?
The Tougaloo Agri Growth Initiative, our food system project,
okay,
is run by the students.
Okay.
So they so besides the fact they learn agriculture, obviously, high tonal production, different growing methods, and actually doing the work, actually building the garden. They also learn about marketing. So, they did a marketing campaign for our project. They did, for example, there was a heart healthy initiative. I think it's 49% of all black women have some form of heart disease. All black women over 20 have some form of heart disease.
Wow.
Some kind of statistic like that. So they did a whole heart healthy initiative around that to promote our garden and local eating. They did an event for Earth Day that they promoted. They, organized, they helped us prepare presentations for funders and, of course, and then the student founder of the organization was an economics major. So he understood about scaling and, yield and how pricing can produce yield and how much profit you can make. And so they're a big part of that, helping shape our business plan as we're preparing for our expansion and scaling. So they cover all aspects of it and get all of these amazing skills that they otherwise wouldn't get that they can parlay in the career. And the best part is they're getting paid living wages. Now, they'll tell you the biggest thing also, too, in addition to the skills and the experience, is the money.
Okay.
So we pay them living wages. And that was the biggest thing because we wanted to get a labor force that didn't believe in the stigma around farming and, obviously connected to child slavery, sharecropping. So we pay them living wages, and the idea is we're developing this as a food system where there'll be owners and have a stake in it. So it's really transformative what it does for them as far as skill sets, as far as building wealth.
We'll be right back, everybody. This is exciting. Yeah, we could use 2 or 3 more hours. We'll be right back. Please don't touch that dial. Welcome back, everybody. This is Vernon Oaks, and the program is Everything Co-op. We have Julian Miller, attorney, and Pastor Keith Davis. So, Brother Miller, you were talking about the kinds of things that students are learning, and you mentioned a couple of things that I like as an educator, and that is that they get hands-on. They get to do programmatic kinds of things, so that the knowledge comes in. It comes alive. It's like it becomes a part of them, not just book reading. And you're talking about a law school, but you said that the economics person helped to set it up. They had a marketing plan, a business plan, and so they're learning a whole bunch of skills, not just legal.
These are undergraduates. Well, no, let me clarify. These are undergrads. Tougaloo is an undergraduate institution. Now, the Anderson Center, we have an educational and policy clinic at Mississippi College Law School, so we do have a program with the local law school in Jackson. But no, these are for the undergrads at Tougaloo.
Oh, fantastic. Okay.
Yeah, these are undergrads. And that's the model for our program. It's experiential learning, that's we replicate that model in our other programs, for the Anderson Center and the Anderson Institute. But yeah, I think that was, that was important as well, because the biggest sort of barrier with food system work generally is building a workforce, is essentially getting over that stigma that connects farming, especially in the black belt, especially in somewhere like Mississippi, to sharecropping and chattel slavery. And so getting this new generation of young people interested in building a career, committing to building a food system work, with the idea that this can be very, very lucrative when you look at the size of the market and the very, very significantly a minuscule market share that especially BIPOC growers and farmers food justice organizations have, and seeing the potential in this. And so we give them these opportunities. We want them to learn. We want to build skill sets. Of course, we want to pay them, make money, but to see the potential so they can be involved and we can have a labor base that can actually, because it's going to take some time. And I appreciate Pastor, Davis. I pay Pastor Davis for this. He's, all this admiration. I'm paying him particularly. But I really appreciate that. And seriously, I'm so flattered. But it's a long way.
Yes.
We've made progress and we figured out a model, but it's a ways to go. We have a ways to go to build these coalitions and bring other farmers into this, to make them see the value in working cooperatively and trying to be strategic in capturing this food market in a cooperative way and building up the local markets. And it's a ways to go. But we're grateful that we have this amazing generation of young people who are Black students who are socially conscious, who want to transform their communities, who want to do good, but also want to do well and see the viability in developing a food system work and food justice work in doing that. And
Fantastic.
So I think that's a big part of of why we do what we do in that space.
Fantastic. So, Brother Davis, can you give us examples of what students are learning, or even some?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. One of the ways that I've been able to leverage my background, having written and successfully operated within the government's 8A program through the Small Business Administration for a quarter of a century, wrote and managed my own program around government procurement. And so the nomenclature for the federal government, and while I am not a lawyer, I'm an entrepreneur in that sense, I understood the nomenclature. So we, a year and a half ago, went out and wrote a registered apprenticeship program with the United States Department of Labor. And we currently sponsor our own. And the reason why we did this, mind you, we could teach all the technology, we could teach coding, we could teach operating systems, we could teach how to lock down systems, optimize systems, and you name it. But if you don't have experience, you won't get hired.
Mm-hmm.
You stated that. So again, keeping in mind so that we're consistent with the reason why I'm here today, all of this coding that we do supports urban agriculture. But also some of these kids who are learning the coding and so forth, they'll decide one day, I love growing greens, but I'm offered a job. Our apprentices, for instance, day one, walking in the door, are making $80,000 a year in Maryland.
Fantastic. And
so
where?
They will say, in Maryland. I mean, by the end of year one, they had $100,000. And they're getting signing bonuses if you have experience. So I'm very fortunate to have relationships with some of the biggest IT companies in the world. And we are national. And I even have some things going on globally right now. So just to give a sense of, how we operate and how we're functioning. So with that, a registered apprenticeship program, we're able to now share with our students that there's a carrot here. There are local companies that are part of our program, and they already understand you don't have the experience, but you've paid the price to become academically sound, and you have completed your coursework, which is extremely rigorous, and you've certified in many cases. The employer now will bring you in for 2,000 hours of on-the-job learning. Again, I didn't say training. Mm-hmm. I didn't use a 1960 version of this. It is on-the-job learning where the local hospital, the local, telecommunications company, the local cable company becomes an extension of our classroom. And up to 1 year, our students are able to apply what they've learned in theory in our classroom and apply it in real-world work experience. So give you one case in point. I partner with the New Jersey Reentry Corporation that was founded by former Governor Jim McGreevey. It has the current blessing of our current governor. And it's made the only major initiative. In fact, it should be a national model for how to partner with prisons and jails in our state. And we are their supplier to teach IT. And one of their students who came through our system this past year, we have a process, and I don't want to get into what that looks like, but in other words, we vet everyone. This individual passed that vetting process. Gave him a series of courses. He aced them all and was certified. And so we gave him another challenge, gave him another series of courses to take, and he's certified there. Well, we supported him with an application to a company. Now, I don't mind mentioning the company, Cisco. Cisco is the company that Myers wired the Super Bowl last week. They hired him, flew him to Arizona, put him in a hotel, and he wired up the Super Bowl. He's coming back. When he comes back to New Jersey, there's a job available for him on a permanent basis. That's one example of how our model is making a difference to eradicate poverty and bring access to people who historically have not been a part of this IT world. So I'm excited about it. I guess you can tell.
I am also what both of you brothers are doing, what you're both doing. So let's talk. We only have about 4 or 5 minutes. So where do you see the future? Brother Miller, can you give us a couple minutes on what's the future look like for blacks in Mississippi, in the U.S., and this program? How does it?
Well, I'm cautiously optimistic. I believe in my lifetime that through this work, and particularly building coalition statewide, and also a lot of what our partners are doing, Pastor Davis and I, in addition to Feed America and the Food Security and Equity Impact Fund, we also have National Partners with Elevated Initiative. Organizations like Share Strength are looking to help support the development of BIPOC food systems and food justice work regionally and nationally. I think I'm cautiously optimistic to say that I believe that, again, in my lifetime, that we will build a coalition of farmers and food justice organizations and BIPOC-led communities to capture the $6 billion food market in Mississippi and alleviate poverty and essentially transform our communities economically. I'm not sure if you're aware, you probably are aware of everything that's going on in the city of Jackson with not only its water crisis, but now there's the legislature has passed legislation that is going to create essentially this apartheid system in Jackson that would essentially, a colleague of it calls it white line, the white sections of Jackson, and increase the police force, appoint judges and prosecutors and expand its police force by our white leadership. I kid you not, this is literally happening. And it's all going to be funded about 18% sales tax from the city of Jackson, predominantly 82% black city of Jackson, to fund this white city within a city. And so it's not just it's not just gentrification on steroids. It's also extracting the wealth of a black-owned city, and to protect the white section of it. And a big part of their loss of wealth is that you had significant white flight. So I say all this to say there's very little political power in our state. Our state is predominantly white and very conservative as our state leadership. But the political power will be in building wealth, in building black-owned, black-managed wealth to build our own communities, invest in our communities, and therefore de facto have political power to determine how we live our lives, how we work, how we grow, how we educate our children, how we deal with issues in our community. And so that's what this movement is so powerful around food systems and economic security. So I believe it will continue to advance. I believe it will be a model that will capture wealth, alleviate poverty, make these communities politically and economically independent, and it can be replicated throughout the region and throughout the country.
Fantastic, particularly with the co-op base. I like that. Brother
Yes.
Davis, what about you? Where do you see the future?
I agree with everything Julian has said, and yeah, he pays me big money for agreeing with him. That's for sure. I just see the shift, and I believe deeply in what we're currently doing, and I believe that the future is going to be great because I'm seeing a change. I've been in business for decades, and I've never seen a sincere, heartfelt desire for diversity, equity, and inclusion as I see it today.
And we've got to quit there. I'm sorry.
We have a window, and so we need to seize it.
Let's go through it, everybody. Everybody out there, we'll see you next Thursday. Please live cooperatively.
News Talk 1450 WOL AM, where information is power.